Ok, guys. Tava... Ah, tá certo. E aí, James Handfield, Gabrielle Houston, Kathleen Lira, Felipe Coppola. Nome de jornalista, Felipe Coppola. Ok. Lolicon, beleza? Tranquilo, tranquilo. Deixa eu fechar esse... Ok. Beleza, pessoal? Bom, os nossos livros aqui, na verdade, ai, meu Deus, desse capítulo e essa unidade, o assunto mais forte aqui sempre estão sendo os tempos verbais e assim levando sempre em consideração que que nós estamos vendo o present perfect e o past perfect, né? Mas o present perfect a gente está vendo mais. E os phrasal verbs, né, que foram explicados, phrasal verbs, que são as frases verbos, que tem uma ligação com os idioms, que são English Idiomatic Expressions. Tem dois lolicon. Deidara lolicon, lolicon NIC. Certo? Então vamos lá. O negócio é o seguinte. Os nossos temas são sempre present perfect. Deixa eu só fechar isso aqui, que isso aqui não tem nada a ver. Cadê onde eu coloquei? Tá? Nós estamos usando o Grammar Book. E capítulo 2, então estamos iniciando, ó. Have you ever gotten money working? Aqui na verdade é para fazer uma tradução. O que significa lolicon? Deixa eu perguntar aqui, eu não entendi. Tá, então é isso. Deixa eu só conferir uma coisa que eu tô curioso. Como sempre, nós começamos sempre com esse tema aqui, não é? Que é esse tema título. E aqui as traduções. Mas eu sempre coloco o áudio desse texto para facilitar, para simplificar, a treinar a percepção. Que no caso seria esse.
Kit 4. You know. Chapter 2. Have you ever gotten money working?
Emily, you know. Mom wouldn't allow me after all.
Don't get frustrated, Natalie. Jules can wait.
I've already accepted it.
Natalie, have I mentioned about myself? My father doesn't want to give me a car.
But Emily, what else can you ask for? They have just given you the trip to Bali. Don't you remember?
Nevertheless, I had a hard time studying to get the best grade in class, and my profile is not perfect.
I understand you. I'll give you an advice. Go get a job, and then save money.
I feel so awful.
Hello? Are you listening to me, Emily? You should look for a job and make your own money.
Me?
You! Haven't you ever worked as a volunteer at school? There are several schools in Australia, right?
Yes, but make and save money sounds completely different. And besides, what could I work with?
Think and look for one in the newspaper. Then you can call or send an email to solve your doubts.
Okay, I'll think about it, Natalie. Thanks anyway.
Certo, mais uma vez.
Kit 4. You know. Chapter 2. Have you ever gotten money working?
Emily, you know. Mom wouldn't allow me after all.
Don't get frustrated, Natalie. Jules can wait.
I've already accepted it.
Natalie, have I mentioned about myself? My father doesn't want to give me a car.
But Emily, what else can you ask for? They have just given you the trip to Bali. Don't you remember?
Nevertheless, I had a hard time studying to get the best grade in class, and my profile is not perfect.
I understand you. I'll give you an advice. Go get a job, and then save money.
I feel so awful.
Hello? Are you listening to me, Emily? You should look for a job and make your own money.
Me?
You! Haven't you ever worked as a volunteer at school? There are several schools in Australia, right?
Yes, but make and save money sounds completely different. And besides, what could I work with?
Think and look for one in the newspaper. Then you can call or send an email to solve your doubts.
Okay, I'll think about it, Natalie. Thanks anyway.
Certo, galera? Então esse é o áudio. Qual que é a ideia? Sempre escutar o áudio e tentar separar o maior número de palavras possíveis para que assim você não precise procurar no texto. Oi, Kate Oliveira. Tudo bem? Boa tarde. Só que é o seguinte. Obrigado, Neidara. Um aperfeiçoador de lolis. Que seria... Deixa eu ver se eu entendi. Ok, então é isso. Ouvir o áudio primeiro, guardar o maior número de palavras possíveis. E assim, o certo seria usar o texto que está no livro do Student, simplesmente para conferir o quanto você compreendeu. Eu acho que essa seria a maior sacada, tá? Pessoal, a gente viu deixa eu só vir aqui rapidamente. Vou falar sobre esse cara já. A gente viu, nós vimos de novo no capítulo 1 algo sobre phrasal verbs, tá? Phrasal verbs. Então, mesma ideia. A gente vai ver o que originou eles, mas na verdade eu só tenho aqui um de negócios. Não tenho um maior, né? Ó, os phrasal verbs estão aqui e os idioms, cadê eles? Só um second. Só um minuto, pessoal, tô só é que eu tenho um idioms aqui, eu não sei onde eu botei. Idioms são English Idiomatic Expressions. Eles são usados para, como os nossos, que nós usamos aqui, por exemplo, Deus ajuda quem cedo madruga, esse bordãozinho, tá dentro da ideia dos...
Learn English with Pictures, 22.
Dentro da ideia dos English Idiomatic Expressions. E ele está aqui.
Lesson 9, Business Idioms, Part 1. Idioms are short phrases with meanings that are different from the meanings of their individual words. Idioms are different from slang. Idioms are in between formal and informal, so they are acceptable in everyday English conversations and emails, including some communication at work. Slang is very informal and is usually used in humor, music, and conversations between close friends. Formal English is used in official business, legal, and academic areas. Casual English includes idioms and is used in everyday conversation and emails. And informal English can use slang. You'll find that in humor and music. Slang is almost never used in business English, but idioms are often used in conversations and emails, so I'm going to introduce you to some common idiomatic expressions. This is the method we'll use for learning the idioms. First, look at the example of the idiom in context. Then, try to guess the meaning of the idiom. Then, wait for the answer and explanation. Why do I recommend these 3 steps? Well, it's important to try to figure out the meanings of the idioms from the context. This helps you think actively about the expressions and learn to understand new expressions faster. Ready? Let's begin. Number 1. We showed the president 20 ideas for new products, but she didn't like any of them, so we had to go back to the drawing board. Does go back to the drawing board mean A, ask other people for advice, B, start again from the beginning, or C, reuse a good idea from the past? Go back to the drawing board means B, start again from the beginning. Designers and engineers often draw a picture of a product as the first step in its development, so going back to the drawing board means to start again at step 1 of a process. Number 2. Our sales estimates were way off the mark. We'd projected sales of 15 million, but the actual numbers were closer to 9 million. Does way off the mark mean A, too optimistic, B, higher than average, or C, very wrong or inaccurate. Way off the mark means C, very wrong or inaccurate. This idiom comes from the sport of archery, where arrows that do not hit the target are said to be off the mark. The word way means very, so way off the mark means very inaccurate. Number 3. The text for the article is almost perfect. I just want to tweak 1 or 2 sentences. Does tweak mean A, remove, B, make small adjustments, or C, make longer? Tweak means B, make small adjustments. I don't know the origin of this word, but it can be used as either a noun or a verb. You can say, I want to tweak 1 or 2 things, or I want to make a few tweaks, to talk about minor adjustments. Number 4. I need to submit a weekly report on this project, so please keep me in the loop. Does in the loop mean A, informed or updated, B, working hard, or C, in the office? In the loop means A, informed or updated. You can also say the opposite, out of the loop, if you are not being informed or updated about a project or news. Number 5. 3 people from my department are on vacation, so I've got a lot on my plate at the moment. Does I've got a lot on my plate mean A, I have a lot of responsibilities, B, I wish I was on vacation too, or C, I have nothing to do? I've got a lot on my plate means A, I have a lot of responsibilities. If you go to a buffet and you put a lot of food on your plate, then you are obligated to eat it all. So, having a lot on your plate means you have many tasks or responsibilities. Number 6. The rule of thumb is to reinvest no more than 30%, but it's okay if you go over that number occasionally. Does rule of thumb mean A, minimum amount, B, strict limit, or C, general practice? Rule of thumb means C, general practice. A rule of thumb is a general rule or general practice that may have exceptions in some situations. This is your thumb. If you use your thumb to measure something, you can get a general idea, but the measurement will not be perfectly accurate. So, a general rule with exceptions permitted is called a rule of thumb. Number 7. Bob said I missed the deadline, but I want to set the record straight. I submitted my work on time, but he didn't check his email. Does set the record straight mean A, correct a mistake and say the truth, B, express a different opinion, or C, get permission? Set the record straight means A, correct a mistake and say the truth. When there is a misunderstanding, or something was falsely reported, you should set the record straight. Say what is true, so that people have the correct understanding of the situation. Number 8. We have until December to prepare these documents, so let's put them on the back burner for now. We have other, more urgent projects. Does put them on the back burner mean A, send them back to their origin, B, give them low priority, or C, finish them quickly? To put something on the back burner means B, give it low priority. This idiom comes from cooking. The picture shows a stove with 4 burners. If you are cooking multiple things at the same time, you put the less important items which don't need your attention on the back burner, and you put the items on which you are actively working on the front burner. So, to put something on the back burner is to temporarily give it low priority and less attention. Number 9. That program never produced any significant results, so the director finally decided to pull the plug. Does pull the plug mean A, get personally involved, B. Improve the technology, or C. Stop or discontinue. Pull the plug means C. Stop or discontinue. The picture shows a plug. If you pull, remove, the plug of your television from the source of electricity, the television will stop working. So, to pull the plug on a project or program means to discontinue it. Number 10. Yesterday's meeting lasted 4 hours, but in a nutshell, we decided to close our office in India and open a branch in China. Does in a nutshell mean A. In an argument, B. In the end, or C. In summary? In a nutshell means C. In summary. When you summarize a lot of information in a short phrase or explanation, you can begin the statement with in a nutshell. The picture shows nuts. The shell is the hard exterior of the nut. A nutshell is very small, so when you put a lot of information into a small number of words, you can say in a nutshell to express the fact that you are giving a summary. Number 11. Laura didn't go to the meeting. Could you send her a summary of the discussion to bring her up to speed? Does bring her up to speed mean A. Help her work faster, B. Give her the most recent information, or C. Find out what her perspective is? Bring her up to speed means B. Give her the most recent information. If someone is up to speed, it means they are fully informed about the latest information. So to bring or get someone up to speed is to give them the most recent information so that they can be up to date on the current situation. Number 12. Don't make any changes without talking to Peter. He's the one calling the shots on this project. Does calling the shots mean A. Communicating with the supervisor, B. Making the important decisions, or C. Working very hard? Call the shots means B. Making the important decisions. The person who is calling the shots is the one who has authority to decide what must be done, and other people must follow his or her instructions. Now take the quiz to put these idioms into practice, and come back tomorrow for your first progress test to review what you've learned so far.
Ok? E aí, junto com ele, a gente tem os phrasal verbs também. É uma sequência.
Hi, and welcome to the webinar. Today I'll be teaching you 10 phrasal verbs with multiple meanings. Now, to refresh your memory, a phrasal verb is a 2 or 3 word verb with a main verb and a preposition, like the example in the picture, take off. Now, phrasal verbs are very similar to each other. For example, we have take off, take out, take on, take over, take up, and all of these are different. And also, one phrasal verb can have multiple meanings. Take off can refer to an airplane going up into the air. Take off can mean to remove something. For example, take off your jacket or take off your shoes. And we have 3 more meanings. Take off can mean increase fast in success and popularity. For example, if a new video game takes off, it means that a lot of people start using and playing the video game. Take off is also an informal way to say leave. For example, you can tell your friends, I've got to take off. I'll see you guys later. That means I have to leave. And finally, we also use take off when you stop working or studying for a period of time. For example, I took 2 weeks off from work. So in today's lesson, I'm going to teach you 10 of these phrasal verbs which have 2, 3, or even more meanings. So here's how today's class will work. I will show you an example sentence. You'll try to guess what the phrasal verb means in context, and you can type your answer in the box, or you can just think about it to yourself, and then I will explain and give some more examples. Now, why do I ask you to guess what the phrasal verb means? Because I think this is a good way for you to practice figuring out new English expressions from their context. So even if you get the answer wrong, it's okay. This is good practice for you. All right? And if you want to learn 500 phrasal verbs, then definitely check out the Phrasal Verbs in Conversation course, which uses a similar method. In that course, you also have the chance to learn the phrasal verbs in context through conversations. So there's a button under this webinar for the Phrasal Verbs in Conversation course, and if you're interested, check it out. Okay, let's get started. Phrasal verb number 1, pass out. The teacher passed out the tests to the students. What do you think passed out means in this context? Right, this is an easy one. Pass out means to give or distribute. And we can talk about a teacher passing out tests or worksheets in the classroom, or passing out promotional material in public, like passing out flyers, passing out coupons, or sometimes free samples, like if you have a new cafe, sometimes they pass out free samples of food on the street to help attract customers. Now, here's another example sentence. It was so hot in the classroom that I felt like I was going to pass out. Now, what does pass out mean in this context? Okay, some people are saying fall asleep or feel sick. Pass out in this context means to faint, to lose consciousness. People can pass out from shock when something scares them, from fear. People can pass out if they're very nervous, or people can pass out from medical problems like low blood pressure. Now, if you get hit on the head with an impact, then we usually say you get knocked out instead of pass out, okay? Pass out usually doesn't involve an impact. So those are 2 different meanings for the phrasal verb pass out. Let's go to number 2, bring up. Her parents died when she was very young, so her grandparents brought her up. What do you think brought her up means? Good, a few people are getting it. Bring up means to raise, care for, and educate a child. To teach a child good behavior, and we're not talking about formal education here. We're talking about parents teaching children good behavior, for example. Now, don't get bring up confused with grow up. A child grows up. He becomes bigger and older and taller. But the parents or the adults bring up the child. They care for and educate the child. Okay? Now here's a totally different way to use bring up. That's a great idea. You should bring it up at tomorrow's meeting. What does bring up mean here? Oh, you guys are smart. Bring up means introduce a topic into a conversation or discussion. And you can bring up an idea, bring up a suggestion, or bring up something negative like bring up an objection or bring up a problem. It just means to introduce or start talking about that topic in a general conversation or discussion. So that's another way to use bring up. Number 3, take out. He took his phone out of his pocket. What do you think take out means? Exactly. It means to remove something from inside a place. So you can take your phone out of your pocket, like you can see in the picture. When you get to school, you take your books out of your backpack. When you buy a new product, you need to take the product out of the box, and so on. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now here's a slightly different way to use take out. I took out 10 library books. What does take out mean in this case? It's similar, but it's not exactly the same. Okay, good. In this context, take out means borrow. It means you remove the books from the library, but you will need to give them back. And we only use take out in this case for taking books out of the library or taking books out from the library or taking a loan, that's money, out from the bank. You take the books or take the money out, but you will need to give it back later, okay? Now, meaning number 3 for take out. John is taking my sister out to dinner on Friday. What does take out mean here? Good job. A few people got it. Take out means to bring someone on a social encounter, and it may be romantic. For example, taking your girlfriend out to dinner or taking somebody out to see a movie. Or it may not be. You can also take a colleague out to lunch, or your parents can take you out to see a baseball game. And taking someone out usually means you invite them, and usually that you also pay for them. So you pay for their dinner or pay for their movie ticket. Okay? So to take someone out means to bring someone and to pay for their experience, their meal or ticket. Let's look at take up. Imagine you're moving into a new apartment and you look at the apartment and you say, there's no room for a bookcase because the couch takes up too much space. What does take up mean? Right. Take up means to fill or occupy time or space. So, for example, you can see in the picture, this is a really big couch, and it takes up, it fills all the space so that there's not enough room for a bookcase. Again, you can use take up with space or time. For example, responding to email takes up a lot of my time. That's true, by the way. I get a lot of email from students. Okay, here's a different way to use take up. I've just taken up skiing. I've had 2 lessons so far. What does take up mean here? Take up means to start a sport, activity, or hobby. Okay? That's also pretty easy to understand. Number 5, back up. You should back up your files so that you won't lose them if your computer crashes. What do you think backup means? I see we have some computer experts in the classroom. Yes, backup means make a copy of computer data or information. It's to make an extra copy of that computer data, and you can make a backup on a server, you can make a backup on a hard drive or a CD or a USB drive. The important thing is to have an extra copy of the information. So if your computer crashes, if it breaks, or if you lose your computer, if it's stolen, you have an extra copy of your data. Okay? And we have 2 ways to use this word. Back up, 2 words, is the verb, and back up, 1 word, is the noun, referring to the extra copy of the data. Now here's a different meaning. He crashed his car into a tree while backing up. What does backing up mean here? Right, to move backwards, to move the car in reverse. And we can use backup for cars. We can also use backup for people when you're walking and you take some steps backwards. And when you're walking, we can also use back away. We usually back away from danger. Like if you see an angry dog, you would back away from the dog so that it doesn't bite you. Okay? A 3rd way to use back up. My coworkers backed me up when I complained that the boss was giving us too much work. What does back up mean here? This one's a little more difficult. To back someone up means to give moral or emotional support for someone's position. So in this example sentence, I'm complaining about overwork, and if my coworkers back me up, it means they agree with and support me in that opinion or in that position, okay? To back someone up is to give support to that person. Here's another way to use back up. There's a ton of traffic. The highway is backed up for miles. Have you ever experienced this? What does back up mean here? Back up means to accumulate and delay due to excess. So the most common ways we use back up with this meaning is when talking about roads. You can say the road is all backed up because there are so many cars that it's slow or stopped. You can say your toilet is backed up. That means it's blocked and the water can't go through. That's a very bad situation. And you can also say that your schedule is backed up. For example, imagine that you have a store and your store gets a lot of orders around Christmas time, and you get so many customers that you have delays in sending out the orders. So you would say, we're all backed up. I can't ship your order for another 2 weeks, for example. So a road can be backed up, a toilet can be backed up, or a schedule can be backed up. Okay? Blow up. The factory blew up due to a gas leak and 3 people were killed. What does blow up mean? Right, you got it. To explode. Okay? This can be used for any type of explosion, bombs or accidents. It can be used for big or small explosions. Now, a different way to use blow up. The CEO, that's the president of a company, the CEO blew up when he found out that his mistake had lost the company $1 billion. What does blow up mean in this context? It's similar, but it's more metaphorical. Blow up can mean to explode in anger. When someone gets angry very suddenly, very quickly, they lose control, they lose their temper. We say they blew up, okay? So that's not a literal explosion, it's an explosion of emotion, angry emotion. Number 7, give away. If you haven't worn a piece of clothing in more than a year, you should give it away. What do you think give away means? Good job. Give away means to give something to someone for free, okay? Different from selling it, you give it for free. Like you can see in the picture, people donating their old clothing, giving it to other people for free. Here's another way to use giveaway. I don't want to give away the end of the movie. You'll have to see it for yourself. What do you think give away means in this sentence? In this case, give away means to reveal secret information. And we usually talk about giving away the end of books or giving away the end of a movie. You don't want to give away the end of a movie or a book to someone who hasn't seen it or read it yet, because then you'll ruin the surprise for that person. And sometimes we also talk about giving away company secrets or strategies. One example is that Coca-Cola definitely doesn't want to give away their recipe for Coke, because then everybody would be able to produce it. So give away, another meaning for it is to reveal secret information. Number 8, work out. I need to lose weight, so I'm going to work out at least 3 times a week. What do you think work out means here? To exercise, that's right. Working out can mean any type of exercise. It can mean exercise you do with only your body, like yoga, or any types of exercises, or it can mean exercising with objects or with machines, so lifting weights or using an exercise machine. Working out can refer to running as well. Any type of exercise can be called working out, okay? Now what about this sentence? There were a number of problems during the project, but everything worked out fine in the end. What's your best guess for what worked out means in this situation? It means it resolved, it had a positive outcome, and we usually use worked out in this way when there were some difficulties or challenges in the process, but in the end everything was okay. We say everything worked out, or we worked out the problems, we resolved the problems. Okay, so that's a different meaning for work out. Number 9, make up. I didn't know the answer to the question, so I just made something up. What does make up mean in this case? It means to invent a story or invent some information that is not true. It's just coming from your imagination. Children often make up stories or make up imaginary friends. One thing you don't want to do is make up information if you're a journalist. That's not good. You need to report the facts and not make up, invent false facts. Okay, so make up means to invent something, usually a story or a piece of information. Now, how about this? After not speaking to each other for a month, my daughter and her best friend finally made up. What does that mean, they finally made up? If you make up with a person, it means you restore a good relationship after an argument or fight. So in this case, we have 2 girls who had an argument or a disagreement or a fight, and they didn't speak to each other for a month, But then eventually they made up. They became friends again and they restored their good relationship. Okay, so when two people make up, it means they come back to having a good relationship after a disagreement or argument. Now how about this? I bought my mother a nice gift to try to make up for missing her birthday party. What do you think make up means here? Wow, you guys are really good. To make up means to compensate in this situation. So I missed my mother's birthday party. My mother's probably sad or upset or angry, and so I buy her a nice gift to compensate for my mistake or my absence at her party. And there are two ways to use make up in this way. You can say make up for a mistake or make up for bad behavior, or you can say make it up to a person. So one sentence you'll hear, if your friend does something that makes you angry or upset, they might say, how can I make it up to you? It means, how can I compensate for my error? How can I do something good that will balance out the bad thing that I did? How can I make it up to you? Okay? Make up meaning to compensate. Now we also have the word make up, one word, which means cosmetics. That's lipstick and eyeshadow and other things that women usually, but also actors and actresses put on their face to make them more beautiful. That's a noun, and that's one word, makeup, cosmetics, okay? And our last phrasal verb, pick up, has many meanings. I picked up the toys that my kids left all over the floor. What does picked up mean here? Good. This is the easiest and simplest meaning. To pick up means to take something, usually with your hand, and bring it up from a surface. So here in the picture you can see the toys all over the floor, and the kid's mother or father needs to pick up the toys, get them up off the floor and put them away in their proper places. Now, how about this? I'll be back in an hour. I need to pick up a few things at the store. It's not exactly the same meaning as the previous one. What does pick up mean here? Pick up means to buy. It's an informal or casual way to say you're going to buy something. You would usually pick up food at the grocery store. You can pick up something on your way home from work. For example, you're driving home and you remember that you don't have any soap at home, so you stop at the convenience store to pick up some soap. We usually don't use pick up for major purchases, like you wouldn't pick up a diamond necklace or pick up a new car, because those are usually things you need to think about buying and research. So pick up is a way to talk about casual or informal purchases. Here's another one. Sure, I can give you a ride. The concert starts at 8, so I'll pick you up around 7:15. What does pick you up mean? Pick someone up means to get someone in your car to take them to a place. So if your friend doesn't have a car but they need to go somewhere, you can say, I'll pick you up. I will get you in my car to take you somewhere. And the opposite of pick up or pick someone up is drop the person off. So for example, if your friend is returning from a trip, you can pick them up at the airport and then drop them off at their house. A fourth meaning for pick up. When we moved to Spain, my kids picked up Spanish within 3 months. How about picked up here? What does it mean? Right, it means to learn, and usually to learn quickly and casually, not in a formal classroom environment. So in this example sentence, when I say my kids picked up Spanish, it means they learned it naturally from their friends, from TV, from day-to-day life, not that they were in a classroom. They just picked it up. They learned it naturally and easily. And finally, a fifth meaning for pick up. Sales are slow over the summer, but they usually pick up around September. What does pick up mean in this context? Take your best guess. Right, pick up means to increase or improve, often after a period of decrease or no change. So you can see from the little diagram that I have no real major change in sales, but then it starts to go up, and we say that sales pick up when they suddenly start to go up a little bit, usually not a big increase, but it's a change in the positive direction. And we usually use pick up in this way when talking about the economy, sales, or growth. Okay, so that's 5 different ways to use the phrasal verb pick up. Well, you guys did great in this webinar, and I hope you've learned some new meanings for phrasal verbs. And if you want to continue learning phrasal verbs in context, specifically in the context of conversation, more conversational spoken English, you'll really enjoy the phrasal verbs in conversation course. This was one of my favorite courses to produce because you learn directly from dialogues, which makes it easier and more interesting. And the dialogues are full of the phrasal verbs that we use in everyday life all the time. So each lesson starts with a dialogue with lots of phrasal verbs and then continues with an explanation of those phrasal verbs, including more examples and when to use and when not to use each phrasal verb. And the lessons in this course also include lots of practice exercises because I think it's really important not just to study, but also to use the new words that you're learning. So I included quizzes with the phrasal verbs to help you remember them, and also some writing exercises where you can practice writing sentences with the phrasal verbs, and you can even send them to me for correction. The course is 30 lessons with audio, video, and text, and when you register for it, you get permanent online access. There's no time limit, okay? So there's 30 lessons, but you can take them anytime, and you can also download all the lessons to your computer or to your smartphone or tablet to make it more convenient for you and to be able to study even if you don't have an internet connection. All right, so if you're interested in taking phrasal verbs in conversation, just click the button under this webinar and you'll get more information and registration for the phrasal verbs course. Well, I normally take questions at the end of the webinar, but unfortunately we're just about out of time. So I'm going to respond to all of your questions by email, okay? So if you have a question about the phrasal verbs you learned today, or about the phrasal verbs course, or about any other aspect of English, you can type your question in the box, or you can email me directly. My email address is help@espressoenglish.net, and I will respond to you by email within a couple of days, okay? And I will also type up the notes from this webinar and send them out to you so that you can have the text of today's webinar about phrasal verbs with multiple meanings. I hope you guys enjoyed today's class. It was great to have your participation. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you in the phrasal verbs course and also in the next webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Hello? Certo, pessoal? Hello, hello. Certo? Então aqui nesse primeiro exercício, que é na página 14, é só para completar com have ou has. Ok, pessoal? Certo, pessoal? Tudo tranquilo sobre phrasal verbs? Phrasal verbs e BTS. E present perfect, tranquilo, tranquilo. Exercícios são esse aqui, ó, da página 14 e 15. Tranquilo, é só para colocar o have ou has. É que tá quente aqui. Uma observação aqui é essa aqui, ó. Peraí, deixa eu dar uma olhada nele aqui. É o ever. Tá? Que significa já. A gente já falamos sobre isso em outras aulas. Então é o seguinte, lá tem muita pergunta assim, vou colocar um exemplo aqui, né? Né? Que aqui, traduzindo, né? Seria basicamente isso. Você já fez? Have you ever done? Então, só pelo fato de nós termos usado ever aqui, que vai aparecer em algumas orações. Peraí. A resposta vai ser already. Por exemplo, I have already done. Olha que interessante. Se eu pergunto com já, eu respondo com já também. E automaticamente só que assim, sempre respeitando o particípio. Observem que eu utilizei o verbo aqui de novo no particípio. Vou até deixar de outra cor, ó. Que foi o done. Esse verbo eu tive que reescrevê-lo. E o verbo auxiliar, né? Porque tem que também reescrever e utilizar o verbo auxiliar. Ó. Have you ever done? Yes, I have already done. Ok? Alguma dúvida em relação a isso? Se fosse no caso terceira pessoa, seria has, né? Has she done? Has she ever done? E aí seria yes. She has. Ou não, né? Tá vendo? Seriam essas aqui as formas. Né? Eu fiz a primeira pessoa, vou até pegar esse pedaço aqui e colocar lá, porque fica primeira e segunda pessoa, né? E agora, primeira e terceira pessoa. Aqui, ó. Peraí. Ok, galera? Então vamos à sequência. Então a gente vai aqui até, na verdade, com esse tema de Present Perfect, nós temos essas 3 lições, 14, 15, 16 e o 17, essa sequência inteira. Sendo que o 17, na verdade, é um exercício de alternativa. Mas, ao olharmos com calma, a gente vai encontrar aqui presente perfeito também, ó, have, mais uma escolha, né, ó, tá vendo? Então, basicamente, todos os exercícios aqui até o 17 são de Present Perfect, tá? Sempre deixando claro que o Present Perfect aqui tá fazendo uso desses jás aí, que é o ever e o already. Eu já tinha falado anteriormente do done e do yet, que é ainda, mas eu acho que isso aqui vai dar uma pequena atrapalhada, que seria já também e ainda. Então ficaria assim, né? Present Perfect.
Oi, eu sou a professora Jéssica da Evolutime e hoje eu vim trazer para vocês o Present Perfect, tá? Muita gente tem dificuldade com esse tempo verbal porque a gente não tem nada parecido com isso no português para se basear. Então eu trouxe aqui umas diquinhas para vocês para facilitar a compreensão e facilitar o uso também desse tempo verbal, tá bom? A primeira coisa que a gente precisa entender é para que o Present Perfect serve? Qual que é o uso desse tempo verbal? A gente vai usar ele de 3 maneiras principalmente, tá? A primeira maneira que a gente vai trabalhar é quando a gente fala de uma ação que começou lá atrás no passado, mas que continua acontecendo até hoje. Essa ação, ela durou um tempo, né, na sua vida e continua fazendo parte da sua rotina. Eu coloquei um exemplo aqui para vocês. I have studied at Evolutime since 2014. Então eu falo aqui nessa frase desde quando eu estudo na escola Evolutime, ok? Segundo uso mais comum do Present Perfect é para a gente citar uma ação que durou um longo período de tempo. Essa ação ela já terminou, mas ela fez bastante tempo parte da sua vida, tá? Eu coloquei um exemplo aqui para nós. He has worked at Evolutime for 6 years, ok? Então eu dei aqui o período em que esse trabalho se deu, por quanto tempo essa pessoa trabalhou na Evolutime, certo? E o terceiro uso dele é quando a gente vai falar de uma situação, uma atividade que a pessoa já fez ou não, sem necessidade de dizer quando aquilo aconteceu, tá? O que foca nesse terceiro caso aqui é se a pessoa fez ou se ela não fez. E no exemplo que eu coloquei aqui, I have never been to Jamaica. Aqui eu já dei um exemplo negativo, essa pessoa nunca fez isso. Só que não significa, obviamente, que ela não possa fazer no futuro, ok? Para a gente trabalhar o Present Perfect, eu destaquei aqui nos nossos exemplos quais são as ferramentas mais importantes para ter sempre na nossa frase, tá? Primeiramente, a gente vai trabalhar com auxiliar. Nesse caso do Present Perfect, temos o have, que vai ser usado com os seguintes sujeitos: I, you, we e they. E nós temos também o has, que vai ser usado com he, she e it, ok? Essa é uma das primeiras diferenças que a gente vai encontrar no Present Perfect de alguns outros tempos verbais. Ele volta a fazer a diferença desses sujeitos aqui, ok? A segunda coisa importante que a gente precisa prestar sempre atenção na hora de fazer uma frase de Present Perfect são o verbo, tá? O verbo da gente ele vai estar sempre no particípio. Como que vai funcionar? Coloquei 3 verbos diferentes aqui e aqui eu coloquei a explicação de como que funciona cada um deles, tá? Os verbos que a gente considera regulares verbais, que são os que seguem um certo padrão para se modificar, a gente acrescenta o ed no final, tá? Vocês já conhecem provavelmente esse verbo. E os irregular verbs, eles não seguem um padrão. E aí a gente trabalha em sala de aula geralmente com aquela tabelinha de verbos que eu creio que vocês devem ter por aí. Caso vocês não tenham, gente, pelo próprio Google mesmo a gente consegue essa tabelinha de verbos para poder trabalhar as frases do present perfect, tá? A próxima coisa importante também para a gente trabalhar no present perfect é a forma negativa. Para a gente trazer essas duas frases que eu coloquei aqui para a negação, eu vou alterar simplesmente o meu auxiliar. O not, ele nunca vai andar sozinho. Ele sempre vem agrupado com o auxiliar da ocasião. No nosso caso, a gente tem o have e o has. Aqui eu coloquei a forma completa, have not, has not. E aqui a forma abreviada, haven't, hasn't. Ok? Além de todas essas coisas que eu já falei, tem algumas palavras de vocabulário que também são muito importantes na hora da gente trabalhar o present perfect. Inclusive, se você encontra qualquer uma dessas 6 palavras que eu citei aqui na frase, a chance dessa frase ser present perfect é muito grande, tá? O since a gente vai usar sempre que estiver falando do primeiro caso ali. A ação que começou no passado e continua acontecendo até hoje. E aí, com essa palavrinha, a gente diz por quanto tempo essa situação tem acontecido, tá? A gente geralmente dá uma data de início para aquela ação, mas não dá uma data de finalização. Com o for, por outro lado, a gente já vai trabalhar com uma coisa mais limitada. Por quê? É uma ação que já começou e já terminou. Durou um período e você vai especificar qual foi o período exato. Como eu coloquei nessa frase aqui no for 6 years, eu limitei, foram 6 anos, ok? O ever a gente vai usar para um tipo de frase que eu não coloquei nenhum exemplo aqui, mas que a gente vai trabalhar mais pra frente, que é para as perguntas, tá? Então, quando você quiser saber se a pessoa já fez alguma coisa, se ela já praticou alguma ação na vida dela, vocês colocam o ever na pergunta. O never, eu já usei ali, a gente pode usar para fazer frases negativas também. Eu posso substituir o have not ou o has not pelo never, ok? Eu posso substituir o not pelo never. Os dois vão dar a mesma entonação para a frase de negação. O already, que vai ser o já também, porém para respostas agora, tá? Então, se eu te perguntar, você já fez tal coisa? Na sua resposta, se ela for afirmativa, sim, I have already, ok? Ever, pergunta, already, resposta. E por último, nós temos aqui o yet. O yet significa que você ainda não fez aquela coisa, é uma resposta negativa, mas ela não exclui a possibilidade de você vir a fazer essa ação no futuro, ok? Gente, eu vou deixar disponível aqui para vocês alguns exercícios para vocês fazerem, tá? No fim dessa explicação. Pode voltar o vídeo várias vezes, pode imprimir a atividade e fazer junto com o vídeo. E aí, quando vocês retornarem, vocês entregam as atividades para o seu professor, tá? Caso você não consiga imprimir, pode copiar, pode trazer escrito à mão mesmo, que não tem problema nenhum, tá bom? Espero que vocês tenham entendido, que vocês tenham gostado e see you on the next class.
Tá, aqui uma explicação básica do Present Perfect. Tem um exercício aqui dela mesma, mas eu não vou mandar esse exercício, acho que eu até já mandei. Mas a ideia aqui, na verdade, é o domínio do Present Perfect, justamente porque pelo que eu disse. No inglês, nós utilizamos até mais o Present Perfect do que o passado simples. Então, por isso é tão importante dominá-lo. Ok? Personas, personas. Esperar mais uns 4 minutinhos, né, para completar aqui. E aí já caio nesse exercício aqui, personas. Tá, então só repetindo, é 14, 15, 16 e 17, apenas. Estão trabalhando o Grammar Book. Ok? E uma coisa que eu acho muito legal também, que a gente está frisando aqui, são os dois tipos.
Hello
de
everyone,
inglês, né?
welcome to the Lang Focus channel and my name is Paul. Today we'll be answering the question, how are British English and American English different? One of the most commonly asked questions by learners of English. And hopefully native speakers of English will learn a thing or two from this video as well. The truth is that both British English and American English have numerous varieties, in other words, various accents and dialects. So for the main part of this video, I'll try to focus on the most standard, non-regional variety of each one. Disclaimer, I'm not American, I'm actually Canadian, but I'm confident that we will someday be Americans after the invasion. Standard Canadian English is very, very close to general American English, so I will say the American English samples myself, unless there's some specific need to distinguish between American and Canadian pronunciation. There are several ways in which British English and American English are different: vocabulary, accent, spelling, and grammar. Vocabulary. Let me just throw a bunch of examples at you. In the US, people generally say garbage or trash, while in the UK, they generally say rubbish, both literally and figuratively.
The game was rubbish.
Americans go on vacation, while Brits go on holiday, and that's also possible in American English. In the US, people rent apartments, while in the UK they rent flats. In the US, if your apartment is at street level, then you live on the first floor, and the person above you lives on the second floor. In the UK, you live on the ground floor, and the person above you lives on the first floor. If that person above you is unable or just too lazy to take the stairs, in the US they'd take the elevator. In the UK, they'd take the lift. When you're bored at home, in the US you might turn on the TV, while in the UK you would turn on the telly. When you step outside of your building to go for a walk, in the US you might walk on the sidewalk, while in the UK you walk on the pavement. And if you're tired of walking, in the US you might take the subway. In the UK, you take the underground. In the US, it's perfectly okay to wear pants when you're riding the subway, but in the UK, you'd better wear some trousers too, because pants means underpants. And specifically women's underpants are sometimes referred to as knickers in the UK. So when someone overreacts to something, in the US you might say, "Don't get your panties in a bunch," but in the UK you would say,
Don't get your knickers in a twist.
Paul, how dare you be so crude? Now I can't show this video to my 6-year-old students.
"Oh, don't even worry about that, they'll just watch it on their phones during recess." Going back to the word pants for a moment, it can also be used in British English as an adjective, meaning something is crappy or it sucks. For example,
That album is pants.
in American English, you might say, "That album sucks." Accent. So for the US, I'll try to focus on general American English, and for the UK, I'll try to focus on received pronunciation. These are the accents you're likely to hear on CNN and the BBC, respectively. R sounds. American English is rhotic, meaning that R sounds are always clearly pronounced. British English is non-rhotic, meaning that the R sound is not pronounced unless it's followed by a vowel sound. Listen to the difference. My father's in the car.
My father's in the car.
Let's focus on two words. Father,
Father.
car.
Car.
Notice that the final R sound is not pronounced in British English. Father ends in a simple schwa vowel, like father. And in car, the vowel sound is lengthened in place of the R sound.
Car.
Now, the thing about British non-rhotic accents that I find pretty wild is something called the intrusive R. That means that people sometimes add an R sound to a word that doesn't actually have one if it's followed by a vowel in the next word. For example, in the sentence, "I saw a film." In British English, it sometimes sounds like this.
I saw a film.
So you can hear that there's an R sound connecting saw and ah. I once had a British on-the-job trainer, and I remember she said, "Hello, my name is Paula and I'll be your trainer today." I remember thinking, Poller? What? You can't say your own name? But it wasn't just her, that was the intrusive R. T sounds. In British English, and again, I must emphasize that I'm talking about the accent referred to as received pronunciation, T sounds are pronounced as hard T's, in other words, voiceless T sounds. In the US, they sometimes sound like D, an alveolar tap instead of T, an alveolar stop. This normally occurs in an unstressed syllable between two vowel sounds, or between a vowel and a rhotic sound, like an R sound. So in the US, people say butter. In the UK, they say
butter.
In the US, stop fighting. In the UK,
stop fighting.
You may have also noticed that the O sound in the word stop was a little different. Which brings me to O sounds. In the word stop, the American O sound is an unrounded vowel, ah, while the British O sound is rounded, aw. Another example, hot.
Hot.
There's also the O diphthong in the word no. In the UK,
no.
In the UK, the sound is a schwa followed by an as in put. Show.
Show.
A sounds. In other words, sounds represented by the letter A. Ah in UK English normally becomes an a sound in American English. For example, in the UK,
half.
And in the US, half. Words with a in British English remain pretty similar in American English. In the UK,
cat.
And in the US, cat. An exception is a small set of words in which the A is followed by a double R, in which case the vowel is pronounced as eh in the US. In the UK,
marry.
In the US, marry. Because of the difference, in the US, marry and Mary sound the same. Carry and carry sound the same. Spelling. American and British spellings are largely the same, but there are a few notable differences. This is in large part because Noah Webster, whom the Webster Dictionary is named after, made an effort to reform English spelling in the 1700s, in order to make the words spelled the way they sounded. This resulted in some spelling changes in American English. Most, but not all, words that end in RE in the UK end in ER in the US. For example, center, theater, meter, somber. Some words that end in NCE in the UK are spelled with NSE in the US. License, defense, offense. Some words with OU in the UK are spelled with O in the US. Color, favor, honor, labor, etc. The ending ISE became IZE in the US. Organize, apologize. A similar change also occurs in other contexts where the S is voiced. In other words, it makes a Z sound. Analyze, cozy. There are verbs ending with L that take a doubled L in British English when a suffix is added. In American English, there's no double L. Traveled, cancelled, marvelous. If you're wondering how the last one fits in with the others, remember that marvel is a verb, and then an adjectival suffix is added to it. Grammar. There are only very minor grammatical differences between British English and American English. Auxiliary verbs. British people use shall for the future much more than Americans, as well as to ask for advice or an opinion. Some difference in preposition use. In the US, people say on the weekend, but in the UK, they say at the weekend. And in the US, people say different from or different than, but in the UK, they say different from or different to. There are some different past tense forms. For example, in American English, the past tense of the word learn is learned, while in British English, it's more common to say learnt. Actually, both forms are used in either country, but there is more of a tendency towards one form. This is true for other words like dreamed versus dreamt, burned versus burnt, leaned versus leant, etc. Another example. In the US, the past tense of dive is usually dove. In the UK, it's dived. Maybe the American form developed by analogy with drive and drove. Anyways, differences like these are not consistent, but you'll notice some different past tense forms here and there. Past participles. Sometimes past participles have a different form. The most well-known example is for the verb get. In the US, there's get, got, gotten. But in the UK, it's get, got, got. Both forms, got and gotten, have existed since the Middle English period, but gotten has fallen out of use in the UK. Got can be used in American English in the form have got, but with the meaning of have, not have received or have become. I haven't gotten the eviction notice yet.
I haven't got the eviction notice yet.
Alright, let's check a couple more sentences and see what we encounter. In the US, I think we need a lawyer. In the UK,
I reckon we need a solicitor.
you'll notice that a couple of words here are different. British people often use the word reckon, which means think or suppose. Americans know this word, but rarely use it. And while Americans would typically refer to a professional legal consultant as a lawyer, in the UK they often say solicitor, which is a type of lawyer that does consultation. The type of lawyer who represents you in court in the UK is usually a barrister, while in the US they're usually referred to as attorneys. Another sentence. In the US, I'm going for a beer with my friends. In the UK,
I'm going for a pint with my mates.
notice that British people often say pint, where Americans would say beer. Brits also say beer as a countable noun like this, but pint is frequently used. And notice that Brits often say mate, where Americans would say friend. The differences between British English and American English might seem surprising or amusing, but remember, in this video I'm zooming in on the differences and focusing on them. For the most part, they're actually the same. There are some minor differences in vocabulary, in pronunciation, in grammar, and in spelling, but any native speaker with a little bit of exposure to the other will quickly adapt to these differences and be able to understand the other variety without any problem. The differences are sometimes greater if we focus on regional dialects and sociolects of British English and American English. While most Americans probably have no trouble understanding received pronunciation, they may have some trouble understanding Cockney English or the Geordie accent of northeastern England or other varieties. But as far as standard non-regional speech goes, I'd say that the differences are minimal. However, learners of English who focus on one of the two varieties will likely have a little bit of trouble understanding the other until they gain significant exposure to it. The question of the day. What other differences between American and British English are you aware of? In this video, I was only able to give a limited number of examples, so add yours in the comments. Be sure to follow LangFocus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And once again, thank you to all of my wonderful Patreon supporters. And these ones right here on the screen are my top tier Patreon supporters, so many extra special thanks to them. And to everyone out there, thank you for watching and have a nice day.
Ó, os exercícios são apenas Somente esses personas. Ok, isso é bom, né? Se você entendeu, fica mais fácil. Porque na verdade, tudo que a gente vai ver depois, né? Acredito que a gente vai até se ver na presencial aqui. Vai ser o quê? Colocar esses phrasal verbs em prática no diálogo. E o present perfect, porque na hora que você for explicar ações que de repente moldaram a sua personalidade, ou que de repente fizeram que você se tornasse uma pessoa diferente, ou que não fosse em algum lugar, ou que fosse em algum lugar. Se você for contar um passado que de alguma forma te influenciou a mudar ou ter um outro comportamento, obviamente vai ser um present perfect, né? Tipo, desde que eu conheço tal pessoa, eu não faço mais isso. Então é um present perfect, porque existe essa questão de algo que aconteceu lá, mas influencia aqui, né? Tipo, passado e presente meio que conectados aí. Entendeu? Então a gente vai ficar até nessa mesmo, que é esta, ó. Certo, pessoal? Bom, é isso. São só esses exercícios do 14 ao 17 do Grammar, no livro 4, né? Chapter 2. Beleza? Qualquer dúvida em relação, na verdade, os exercícios são só de presente simples. Então, qualquer dúvida pode perguntar para mim no WhatsApp. Tranquilo. A aula fica gravada, mas nós já vimos várias vezes presente perfeito. Então, nesse caso, acho melhor não entender perguntar para mim no WhatsApp. Tá bom? Obrigado pela participação de vocês. Tenham um bom final de tarde. Fiquem todos com Deus. E até a próxima. Bye, bye.